Arcus of Causality. Chapter 1, Primal Energy. In a chaotic void of time and space, a radiant streak shot through. If you looked closely, you would see an ancient longbow at its center, along with a soul wrapped in a bit of divine power. Here, fragments of time floated in the void, each reflecting different pasts and futures. The once continuous timeline had been torn into countless shards of parallel universes, overlapping and spinning in the void. Here, chains of causality lay scattered in chaotic disorder. Many events lost their reasons forever, becoming isolated islands suspended in space-time. Here, time, space, causality, and energy intertwined into a magnificent cosmic tapestry, telling its own story. In one corner of this cosmic scene, a galaxy was wrapped in an asteroid belt. Suddenly, the streak of light pierced the asteroid belt, causing it to begin crumbling. Primal energy, pervasive in the universe, started to flood in. For the celestial bodies within this galaxy, this energy was not unfamiliar. But for life on one of the planets, this primal energy was a completely new phenomenon, beyond their understanding. At that moment, all celestial bodies in the galaxy were once again bathed in primal energy, and changes quietly began. Laurentian Mountains, Canada. A seemingly ordinary blueberry bush began to transform slowly and noticeably. At first, its root system started to grow in a new way, forming a complex network extending tens of yards underground. These roots became thicker and more robust, able to absorb more nutrients, water, and primal energy. Soon after, the trunk began to emit a faint blue glow, especially noticeable at night. The leaves grew larger and thicker, exhibiting a deep blue sheen. Over the next decade, the blueberry bush tripled in height and became exceptionally vigorous. A common gray squirrel accidentally ate the fruit of this mutated blueberry bush. In the following years, it underwent astonishing changes. Its fur became denser and smoother, displaying a metallic sheen. Its size grew, doubling the average adult squirrel within just 5 years. Its muscles became more developed, especially its hind legs and forepaws, allowing it to leap effortlessly between branches. Its reflexes significantly improved, enabling it to perform complex maneuvers instantaneously. The squirrel's teeth became sharper and harder, easily biting through the toughest nutshells. Its claws grew more keen, allowing it to grip smooth tree trunks with ease. Its territorial instincts grew stronger, and it began to actively drive away other animals, even humans. A young man hiking alone in the forest, with a pistol at his waist, walked along a narrow mountain path flanked by tall trees. Suddenly, a gray shadow leaped quickly from the trees. It was an unusually large squirrel, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The young man backed away in terror, fumbling for his pistol. But the squirrel's speed was astounding. It had already landed on his shoulder before he could draw his gun. The young man ultimately succumbed to blood loss. In the same forest, 5 young people hiked together, chatting and laughing. Suddenly, an enormous squirrel leaped from a tree, pouncing on the last person in the group. Before he could scream, the squirrel had pinned him to the ground. Ultimately, 4 people escaped the squirrel's territory. Local police organized a special squad. They carried the latest equipment, including drones equipped with high-definition cameras and small bombs. The squad entered the forest and used thermal imaging equipment to scan the area. They quickly located the abnormal squirrel. Its size was much larger than an ordinary squirrel, clearly visible on the thermal imaging screen. The drones hovered cautiously above the canopy. Through the high-definition cameras, the officers finally saw the giant squirrel. It was perched on a large branch, warily watching its surroundings. The commander ordered the attack. One drone approached stealthily. The squirrel seemed to sense danger and started moving rapidly. But the drone's speed was greater, precisely following the squirrel's movements. As the squirrel leaped to another tree, the drone seized the opportunity, dropping a small remote-controlled bomb. An explosion shattered the branch, sending the squirrel plummeting to the ground. But the abnormal squirrel did not die immediately. It struggled to escape, but another drone had already targeted it. The second bomb landed precisely near the squirrel, ending its life. In the following decades, frequent wild animal attacks on humans around the world sparked global panic. California, United States, a swarm of abnormally large bees attacked a small town, injuring at least 30 people, 5 critically. Witnesses described the bees as fist-sized and extremely aggressive, Sydney, Australia, mutant kangaroos suddenly appeared in the city center, capable of leaping onto 3-story buildings and highly aggressive. Dozens of people were injured, and the local government declared a state of emergency. Mumbai, India, a group of crazed squirrels rampaged through the city center, causing severe economic damage and casualties. Witnesses claimed these squirrels could bite through metal, and ordinary weapons were ineffective against them. Governments worldwide are urgently discussing countermeasures. The World Health Organization has issued a global alert, urging citizens to be vigilant and avoid venturing into wild areas alone. Additionally, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization warned that many insect species are rapidly evolving, growing larger, and becoming more aggressive. Some insects have developed mutations, growing hard shells and sharp teeth. These evolved insects not only destroy vast areas of crops, causing a drastic drop in food production, but also actively attack humans. The UN Ocean Assembly's assessment report on the state of the marine environment mentioned the emergence of new marine species in the deep sea, posing deadly threats to fishermen and vessels. Several deep-sea fishing vessels reported attacks by marine creatures. These creatures not only leaped out of the water to strike the boats but also emitted low-frequency vibrations, causing severe dizziness in humans. Additionally, many small marine creatures have evolved ways to rapidly corrode ships. Marine biologists worry that the evolution of such creatures could alter the entire marine ecosystem, posing a significant threat to deep-sea fishing and maritime transportation. With the increase in primal energy density, high-performance computers experienced a sharp rise in failure rates, and the lifespan of electronic devices significantly decreased. Experimental physicists discovered that the increase in primal energy led to increased electron activity. Scientists predict that existing technology systems, including electronic devices, communication technology, and energy systems, will be severely impacted. The resurgence of primal energy presents both challenges and opportunities for humanity. Augusta, Maine, United States. The gentle spring sunlight bathed the lawn and touched Annie. 10 years ago, a car accident not only took her mobility but also her zest for life. Her husband, Edward, a plumbing worker, faced challenges at work and at home but never complained. Annie looked at her husband as he entered, forcing a smile. "How was work today?" "Not bad," Edward said, gently holding her hand. "How do you feel today?" Annie didn't answer, just quietly looked at him. They had met in college, full of life and promise, now middle-aged. For the past 10 years, Edward never left her side, caring for her needs. Lately, however, Annie noticed his growing fatigue. The once strong hands were now calloused, and deep wrinkles lined his eyes. "Edward," Annie said softly, "let's go see the dogwoods." Edward was momentarily stunned, then smiled brightly, "Just like we used to." On the weekend, Edward took a break from work and wheeled Annie to the hillside. The pink and white dogwoods were in full bloom, petals gently falling in the breeze. Annie closed her eyes, deeply inhaling the fragrance. "Edward," she said quietly, "could you put some petals in my hair?" Edward carefully picked the petals and gently placed them in Annie's hair. In the sunlight, Annie's face seemed to return to her youthful beauty and gentleness. In the following days, Annie became unusually quiet, often staring out the window in deep thought. A week later, she told Edward she wanted to visit an old friend. "Of course," Edward said, "I'll go with you." Annie shook her head, "No need, I want to be alone with her for a few days." "You deserve a rest too." In her friend's care, Annie traveled to the Alps, Switzerland. She had already written her will and looked calmly at the euthanasia medicine the doctor held. Her phone suddenly rang. She answered, hearing her husband's excited voice. "Darling." Edward's voice trembled with emotion, "I sold the house. I bought a newly developed super medicine that can perfectly cure paralysis. We can start over soon, just like before." On the other end, Edward excitedly shared his future plans, while Annie's tears flowed freely.